Alright guys, got this new servo here from my Traxxas X-maxx. Let's get it cracked open and get it fitted. Alright, so you got your Metal Gear Servo. It's supposed to have more torque. I don't think it's much faster though, probably the same speed. You get a turnbuckle steering link to replace the plastic one. Should make it a bit more direct and a much stiffer servo saver spring. Alright guys, you only need two tools to put this in. That's a 2mm and a 2.5mm hex wrench. But if you've done the steering mod, you're going to need a 5.5 nut wrench as well. But you know me, I like making the job easy. So power tools it is for me. And with these I'll leave a link in the description as well. You're good taking stuff off with these, and if you're doing stuff up, I wouldn't do it all the way up. Just do it most of the way up and then do the last little bit by hand. Alright, let's start whipping out some screws. One way to remember where all the screws go is put it all into a little tub and keep all the screws from that stage of the unstripping, keep them all together. Whip all that out. And then there's another couple of screws. If you look in between the receiver box, there's a couple of screws there as well. Let's cut them out. Right guys, little trick. If you've got a hex driver or a screwdriver, if your hex driver isn't magnetic, it can make it more difficult getting these screws out. So what you can do, get yourself a magnet and just brush that across it like that. Do that a few times and then look. One of the best magnets you can use actually is one of these that come out of a hard drive. But any magnet will do, and it will work on pretty much all your tools. Well, that one's already magnetic. See that one? No magnetism there. So get your check it out. You've got to get into this receiver box as well. So we might as well take them screws out while we've got it this way around. Alright, so it's channel 1 that you want to pull out. That's the one right at the bottom. You're going to get this linkage screw out of here for the steering. Next we want to get this skid plate off, so take all 8 screws out of this. We've got 3 screws on the old servo to get out. Alright, then we can get our new servo. Just chuck that in there. Make sure we put that cable down the hole first. I always do that last little bit by hand, guys, because it's so easy to strip these threads out. You do it by hand, just nip them up. Make sure you don't kill it. Alright, so we've got to swap this linkage out. It should be factory set, so you haven't got to mess about with the length of it. Plug all this servo back in. You're going to make sure where you run these wires that you're not going to get them tangled up and stuff, because that's going to make it leak. You want them all to run sort of nice and neatly in there without any sort of going over top of each other. Alright, got to power it up now so we get that servo centred. That fan's seen better days, isn't it? Alright, that moves. Make sure you got your steering trim centred. Then you can get your linkage there. Just make sure you pop that back on there as close to centre as what you can. That don't look bad. And because this one's a metal geared servo, before we went into plastic here, but now we're going into metal, so it's worth putting a little dab of Loctite on there. Not too much, you might never get it out again. This is like the super strong industrial stuff. So I'm just going to put a tiniest little bit on there. Just a tiny amount. If you can't get that out of there again, then you'll put your stuff later on. You don't want to do it up massively too tight, just nip it up. Alright, so now we're back on this front section. We've got to whip the rest of these screws out. It's also a good time to do the steering mod, guys. If you haven't done the mod and you just want to change the spring, then all you got to do is whip that spring out there and you can just take that out and then put the new one in. But on mine, what I've done underneath, because this screw sometimes backs out and comes loose, and what happens then, your steering goes really bad, and there's no way telling. When that's all assembled, there's no way of knowing that screw's come loose, and your steering's going to go soft, your truck's going to drive rubbish and be all spongy, and like you're going to be scratching your head for ages. So it's definitely worth doing this little mod. And it's really easy, because basically all you've got to do, you've got to take a bit more of your truck apart, because you've got to get this part out. It's going to take you 5 minutes longer to do, but once you've done it, it's done then. And that's one problem that you're never going to get again. Right, so you see that screw in there. Normally you can just whip that out, but because it backs itself out over time, I've put a nut on this side. That just locks it all together so it can't fall to bits. That just stops that screw from backing out. Yeah, that new screw, that new spring, that definitely feels a lot stiffer. Another part of that mod was to put a spacer in here to stiffen up that servo saver spring. But we're not going to need that anymore now because this new spring's a lot stiffer anyway. Alright, so people ask me how long does this screw have to be for the modification? 16mm. So a 16mm screw, that's what you need in there, guys. That's long enough then, so you can get an M6 nylock nut on the end of it. Also, why you got this lot apart, I've only just rebuilt my truck, so I know mine's going to be good. But while you got this lot apart, make sure that your steering is 100% smooth. I'm going to get this back together again, and I'll make sure that mine is. I've only had it out a couple of times since I've rebuilt it, so it should still be smooth. But when your steering goes bad, that's normally the main thing. First thing to look at is this bolt backing out, do the mod. Second thing, what can make your steering go bad, is just something tight somewhere. Somewhere in your knuckles, in your bearings here, anywhere like that. Anything goes tight somewhere, that's going to make your steering bad. So definitely make sure you look at that if you're having steering issues. While it's all apart now, it's just going to make it a lot easier. See, that's how easy it should all move. You should be able to get this and just lightly push on that, and everything should move perfectly smooth. If it doesn't, guys, strip it all down, make sure you find where it is. And that really should be that easy, look. I'm doing that with my little finger. That's how easy it's supposed to move. If you feel any binding in there at all, whatsoever, anywhere, it's just going to get worse and worse and worse. You're going to get issues later on. So definitely, guys, definitely 100% sort your steering out. It's going to make your truck so much nicer to use. Another thing is, I saw someone put Loctite onto plastic the other day. Don't ever do that, guys. That's not going to do anything. It's just going to make it worse. Loctite, the only place you should put any Loctite is on metal. Whereas metal to metal. Definitely don't get any onto any plastic. They make this part look a lot easier on the Traxxas video than what it actually is, guys. I mean, it is easy, but not quite as easy as they make out. Alright guys, make sure that every single cable in there has got its own track. Make sure that none of them are overlapping or crossing over each other. Alright guys, I think that's about done. Just got to stick this back in. I always use hot glue on my switch. I've got a Mach 6 ESC in here. And I always glue the switch down here. But when you split the front chassis section away from the main chassis, then you always got to take that off. I don't know if you see my unboxing video yesterday, guys, but I got this little glue gun here, which is battery powered. Awesome bit of kit when you're out bashing. So literally you just turn that on, wait 15 seconds for it to warm up. That's definitely got more torque than the old turbo, guys. We'll try that out in a couple of days and I'll let you know how we get on. Alright guys, that's all done. Hopefully we'll get that out tomorrow for a little blast to see how it gets on. If you want to know where you get all these bits from that I've been using in this video, have a look in the description below. I'll put a link. Alright, so I hope you liked that video, guys. If you did, give us a thumbs up, subscribe, hit that bell button and see you soon.